Everyone seems to think that idioms are really important when preparing for the IELTS exam. But do you really need to use idioms in order to get a high band score? First of all, let's think about what an idiom really is. Idioms are groups of words whose meaning is not necessarily possible to determine from the combination of words. For example, we have an idiom that goes, miss the boat. What does that mean? The words themselves are pretty simple. You arrive too late to get on the boat. But this is not actually how most people use it. Instead, it is an idiom that means not taking an opportunity. Let's say that your friend asks you to invest in her business. She says that you will make back your money and then some profit. But you are too nervous and you say no thanks. Later, her business is very successful and you ask, can I still invest? And she says, sorry, you missed the boat. It means that you should have taken the opportunity earlier. So let's think about the pros and cons of using idioms in IELTS. On the pro side, idioms are a common part of English, and knowing them shows that you have a better grasp of the language. Not only does this show that you know more, they can be quite hard to use correctly, so if you do use them well, you might impress the examiner more. Using an idiom correctly shows a degree of mastery over the language that could be considered a demonstration of a high-level ability. They can also offer you flexibility over your explanations and descriptions. For example, you might talk about cold feet. This refers to people getting nervous and changing their minds about a decision. If the examiner asks you about an experience in the past, you could perhaps talk about having had cold feet and changing your mind. On the other hand, there are some problems with focusing on idioms when you prepare for IELTS. For one thing, they are usually quite informal. This means they are typically not helpful for IELTS writing, which demands more formal writing most of the time. Take, for example, the idiom cup of tea. This means to like something, and we often use it in English, but it's not exactly IELTS language because it's so informal. In addition, idioms can sound really strange when someone uses them incorrectly. If you said, not many people consider pollution their cup of tea, then it would not sound right to a native speaker. It would be better to use more formal language, such as many people are worried about the current pollution crisis. I often hear IELTS candidates saying things that sound quite bizarre because they were slightly misused. These idioms often have very specific uses, and if you force the idiom into your IELTS language, be it for speaking or writing, you might find that you've used it in an unnatural way. Finally, because idioms are hard to use, it takes time to learn them properly. This means that you might spend many hours studying idioms but not use them in your exam. As such, you have wasted your valuable time. So, do you really need idioms for IELTS? Well, idioms are a natural part of the English language, and so it is worth learning them. But you should not focus on them too much. Many lazy IELTS teachers share lists of idioms because they're easy to make and easy to share, but they're not very helpful. Instead, you should work on your grammar and vocabulary skills while reading and listening to English every day. If you do this, you will pick up new idioms regularly. You can collect these in a notebook and Because you have learned them organically, you will be able to use them more naturally. So remember, do not spend too much time learning idioms. You can't fool the examiner into thinking that you're a native speaker just because you know a few idioms.